Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Come on in, sit on down. Give me a minute just to make sure all the levels are all good and you guys can hear me, and I'm not just talking into the wind. Let me make sure the stream health is alright, just doing a few little checks, and then we'll get on with the show. It's been a while since I've done a little a truth or therapy session, and you know what, I feel like I'm in need for a bit of therapy myself, and I'm sure some of you guys are too. So let me just quickly get this stream up on YouTube so I can check everything's all good. Great. Go live. Manage this one. It says excellent connection. That's great. 20 viewers so far. That's good. Let's make sure that doesn't play in the background. There we go. Right, guys, let me know if the sound's a-okay. If you can hear me loud and clear in the chat there, that would be great. Just a bit of confirmation. Loud and clear. Excellent. Thanks for being here, True Life Ministry. Good to see you. Nice new face there. I truly believe the Holy Spirit has led me to your channel. I've watched many of your videos and have been increasing knowledge greatly. Thank you for your research. God bless you and yours in Jesus' name. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad what I do has given you some value. Let me just make sure my phone's on silent. We don't need beeping all the way through this. There we go. All volume down. Excellent. Right, guys. Yeah, so I'm going to do a little show to you for you today. Nothing major. I'm just going to basically vent. I recently released a new episode of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. Episode number 42, in fact, of a long 7-year running series. Anyway, it turns out this thing popped off. I mean, I have never had a video go viral before like this has. I'm currently on I'm just shy of 80,000 views in the first 4 days. I've gained about 4.2 thousand subscribers as a result of this. And as a result, I've got a huge swath of new people who have no idea what I'm all about and what I do other than this one video. So I thought it'd probably be wise for me to do a little bit of a live show and show that, I do other stuff. I talk about plenty of other things. The Nephilim clown connection is my baby. It is my theory. It's something I've been nursing for a good 7 years now. But I am a scattershot conspiracy theorist of all subjects and matters. And what I like to do is a weekly show called the Truther Therapy Sessions, which you're listening to right now if you're one of the new people. And what I generally tend to do in these is do a little presentation, share some thoughts and feelings on certain topics that I've been researching, and then just talk to you guys, let you guys ask some questions, vent, get anything off your chest that you've been thinking about or researching, because I know that learning this stuff, not necessarily the Nephilim clown thing, but just learning the truth in general, whatever topic that may be, can be quite alienating and leave people feeling alone, as though no one understands, or they have no one to talk to. It can lead people to alienate their loved ones and friends and family as they try and wake them up. I get it. I think we've all been there. So I'd like to create a place where you can come and feel like you're not alone. And you do actually have someone to talk to. And you can hear that, no, people do understand. You're not crazy. The rest of the world is. So that's what the Truth of Therapy sessions are really all about. But also I like to share the odd thing here and there. We have a laugh here. We have a laugh, If you can't tell, my voice is very hoarse today. Me and my family, my lovely wife and son, we have been in lockdown for the past week, just absolutely ill beyond belief. We're talking full sinus infections, ear infections, coughing up constantly, phlegm, cold milky green we'll call it. It's been pretty nasty. And my son, unfortunately, who's a toddler, ended up with bloody foot and mouth, so he's had red rashes all over his feet and his hands and his mouth as a result. Luckily, me and my wife didn't come out in those, but we certainly suffered all the other side effects. and I'm just at the back end of it now. My son's healing his rash. My wife is feeling a bit better with a sore throat, and I just have a bit of an earache and a bit of my voice is gone. But the show must go on. And, at the end of the day, I have a family to feed, and this is a revenue stream for me. So I do have to keep that view count up. And, of course, I do want to connect with you guys as well. And I don't want to share the good news. Like I said, the Nephilim clown theory has popped off, and I'm surprised. The the reaction has been amazing, and people have really, really connected with what I was saying in that recent episode. But also, it did come with, well, it came with a lot of people who just did not understand what it was I was doing with that research, not really understanding the context for why I was saying those things and where my research has come from and taken me over the years. And they have basically just called me an idiot and who doesn't understand Eastern culture. And I think they need to understand that what I did in that video, and I'm sure a lot of people who did bother to actually subscribe also understood what I was doing, is it was a cursory look at the aesthetics of a particular style of demon within many cultures of the region. It wasn't a deep dive into Hindu mythology by any stretch of the imagination. It was a look at the aesthetics of specific representations of demons in that region, and how the clown that we have in the West was designed and modelled after features from these monsters and demons. And I think people think I was specifically only hyper-focused on Hinduism and that region, the Indic regions, the Oceanic regions. And that's not at all what my work is really about. That's just one very minor, small subheading of a 50-chapter book I'm writing on one specific culture. The truth is, I've done what I've done in that video for many cultures on every continent all over the earth, pointing out the similarities in the aesthetical features of the folk traditions there. But naturally, people think, well, because you're just some British white boy up there in Europe, you don't have the right to discuss anybody else's culture whatsoever. And it's kind of like, well, if that's the case, no one's allowed to talk about anything ever, are we? Nothing can ever get done. But obviously, I didn't take it too much to heart. But a lot of the Gnostic thinkers came out as well. A lot of the New Age types, a lot of the the chakra alignment types, a lot of people into that Eastern mysticism. To me personally, I find it quite cringy. They're usually very pretentious people, and I think they have this idea that, well, that religion is so complicated and intricate in details that in some way that makes it better than other religions. But I think the overcomplicated nature of the histories of these demons and the relationships they had in their mythologies and stories only serves to prove that actually they were deceivers and liars. I think it was Jesus who said, my yoke is easy. What he is offering is not an overcomplicated thing. His way to salvation is simply just to believe in him and that he died for your sins and rose from the dead, and that's all you have to do. But in these other pagan cultures, well, you got to sacrifice the right thing at the right time of the seasons, and even then, the god may arbitrarily reject your sacrifice if they don't deem it big enough and or small enough or at the right specific time. And even then, it requires pain, suffering, and misery on your behalf, or for you to do something specific in an endless ritualistic cycle. And if you don't do it, then in some way your karmic balance gets shifted in some weird way, and then you're stuck here. It's just overtly complicated unnecessarily. And this is the thing. I think people need to understand what I'm saying. I am saying, yes, these other religions are bollocks. They are lies. The creatures that are the gods within them lied to people. And it's kind of like they can't understand that. It's kind of like, you just don't understand these deep wisdom-filled philosophies and religions of the East. You're just stuck in your Abrahamic way of thinking. You can't comprehend the depth of their reality and their thought processes and their mystic understandings of the world and nature around them. And it's kind of like, no, I do understand. I just disagree. I think it's all made up. I think the fallen angels invented religions for people to follow, in which they put their children, the Nephilim, as figures of leadership in the physical world to keep people in line and to make sure they continue to follow these false religions, which is pretty clear to me from my research, just looking at a cursory glance at all these folk traditions around the world, the oldest traditions of every culture, that they were all venerating the Nephilim, and they all looked the same. They all had features that we would equate to something similar to a modern Western clown. And I've made it clear at the end of that recent video, and I've made it clear repeatedly in the series, that the modern Western clown was a purposefully created caricature. It's an over-exaggerated symbol that represents the features of Nephilim. And it was created for the sole purpose of being able to channel Nephilim like these folk traditions do with their own clownish garb, but in an occult manner in the West. Now, what I'm saying, I understand, can sound convoluted, but it's actually very simple. You know, I think it's more simple than these overcomplicated pagan religions scattered all over the earth, you know. And this is the thing, everyone believes their particular pagan belief system is special. And what I've discovered is that they're all pretty much the same. They're not special at all, and they're all a product of extreme deceit. So if you're new to this, you'll see in the background, you know, I've got basically a compilation of hundreds of photos of different cultures from all over the earth that have these pagan folk traditional harvest festivals or veneration festivals or sacrifice festivals, whatever it is. They all have their own way of doing it, but they all seem to dress the same. And you'll see the aesthetical similarities in the images that play in the background during this show. So if you didn't know what I'm all about, there I've just summed it up for you very quickly. Okay, and let me just have a drink. Yeah, so I think one comment I kept noticing over and over and over again, and this is coming from Christians, okay, so the people I thought would have understood what I was saying more. It seems like there's a good maybe 15-20% of the Christian commenters out there and watchers who are grossly confused about where demons come from. Like, they are way off base. And they're talking to me and condescending and talking down to me like I'm an idiot and I just do not understand what demons truly are. And what they're telling me is that fallen angels are the demons. And all I would ask anybody who actually has this belief is, find me the scripture that says that. Because there is none. There is nothing in the New Testament or Old that says that angels turn into demons, fallen or not. You'll find that worldview, that idea that angels have become the demons, the fallen angels that rebelled against God with Satan and his army, they became demons, is clearly just something made up by churches who didn't have an answer. That is a man-made doctrine. That is not doctrine. Okay? That is just the best guess people had. And it was echoed throughout the churches and disseminated down to the masses, to the congregations, and then people just took it as gospel. But nowhere does it say that. That is not what demons are. An angel, fallen or not, is still an angel. They never changed. They did not become demons. Demons are a very specific thing. So, the fallen angels that did rebel within the rebellion, it wasn't even all of them necessarily that created the Nephilim. It was the Watchers that created the Nephilim. The Watchers were a class of trusted angels by God who were here on earth with us, perhaps worshipped as small minor gods, but there was always a God above them and people knew it. One day, they decided that human women were attractive and took wives and mated with them and ended up creating offspring that are called the Nephilim. These offspring were giant, brutish, evil monsters. Had nothing but evil in their hearts continuously. They dominated mankind, brutalized them, took over and put themselves into positions of leadership and power just by the sheer virtue of their size and terrifying countenance. And they were the potentates of the fallen angels, the Watchers, who rebelled against God and did this. They are the physical foot soldiers for the spiritual hierarchy in the heavens during a war against God. And their aim, as you can see from this image here, was to make sure that humanity worshipped them, or nature, or the pantheons, as the fallen angels displayed themselves as in numerous ways all across the earth. As long as you're worshipping the creation, or the pantheons, or them, they were doing their job. And that's basically what all of human history was. That's what all these folk traditions are the remnants of. Rituals and traditions left over, echoed from this ancient past, where these monsters were around, ruling over people. Now, when they died, when their bodies were destroyed, their soul and or nefesh remained on earth. That is a demon, the disembodied spirit of the physical Nephilim that died. Okay, another name could be Rephaim. It's interchangeable. The Rephaim seem to be these spirits of the dead Nephilim that somehow made it back to the physical realm into a flesh body after the flood. If they did that, they were known as the ones who heal, or the dead ones in some way, which is what Rephaim roughly translate to, as the healers. They had the ability to basically form a body and come back from the dead. That's the Rephaim. But in disembodied form, trapped here on the earth without a body, they are demons. These are the creatures that Jesus cast out of people. These are the creatures that Jesus has given us authority over to cast out of people. These are the creatures that crave a body once more. That's the whole point of possession. That's why they exist. Angels don't need your body. They can manifest into a body at will whenever they please. They have control over reality and in ways we just cannot comprehend. These are heavenly entities. The demons, not so much. The disembodied, the spirits, not so much. And this is all explained in Enoch. And the problem is with a lot of these Christians who want to hold on to this idea that, the fallen angels must have become the demons because it says Satan had his army, and Satan is like the head of the demons, and therefore that must mean that the ones who rebelled with him are therefore the demons that were referenced. They want to believe that because they haven't read Enoch, or they don't believe Enoch is relevant. Even though pretty much all of Genesis was written in a way that assumes the reader has already read Enoch. Genesis 6, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that when the sons of God came into the daughters of men. They bore offspring, children, the same men of renown. Mighty men of old. Then it quickly moves on. That entire human history that I've just described to you is literally given 1 or 2 lines in Genesis. It breezes over it very quickly because it's written as though you should know this. It's kind of a moot point. It's written in a way where it assumes, well, of course you already know about the Nephilim. Who doesn't know about the Nephilim? We don't need to go into that here. This book is about genealogies. This book is about the coming Saviour. This book is about following the lineage of Abraham all the way down to Jesus. This book is here as a testament for the war against the woman's seed and the seed of the serpent, in which enmity was put between. That's basically what all the Bible is. And it talks about the wheat and the tares and the separation in the last days, and that you won't be able to recognize what is a wheat or isn't a tare in the last days because they pretty much look the same by this point. So we'll leave them till the end and God will separate them in the end. I think that's pretty much what it's talking about. This corruption from this initial incursion never left. And I'm careful with that kind of thinking because I don't want to start accusing people of being hidden Nephilim among us, because the truth is we do not know and we cannot know who is and isn't. So it's probably best not to go pointing fingers. That's in God's hands. That's up to him. Judgment is his in the end. And that's where I leave it at that line. But yeah, that's what demons really are. They're not fallen angels. And I think that deception, that lie, that myth needs to be squashed. It needs to be removed from the minds of Christians, especially because they don't have the answers if they still believe that. They don't have the truth. They don't 100% have the story down. And they need to know. These are things they need to know, and they're accusing me of being evil for disseminating blasphemous concepts and ideas, but it's kind of like, this is just the history evidenced outside of the Bible as well. Sure, the Bible's great and it does explain everything, including Enoch especially, but just look at all the other ancient histories and cultures and their mythologies and stories, and you'll find it's the story I just told, just with different stylistic, symbolic ways of depicting it, sure, with their own unique cultural aesthetics, but they're all talking about the exact same story. So the evidence is there, and I just feel like we have to get past this naive, stupid concept that fallen angels are demons. This whole dichotomy created by fiction and media. The media loves playing this narrative all the time. It's angels versus demons, like that's some kind of dichotomy. Like that's like they're equal to each other in some way. Demons are in no way, shape or form equal to angels. Like, they are on completely different levels. Like, an angel will decimate a demon in a second. It's not a problem for them, okay? They are not in the same league, okay? The angels are the creators of demons through mixing their divine essence with human flesh, by corrupting human flesh. That's what happened there, all right? But this is the media always plays into this idea that, you know, you have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, whispering in your ears, like the yin and yang to each other in some way. It's not true. That is in no way, shape, or form based in reality whatsoever. It's a fiction. It's a media-created fiction. It's movie stuff. It's book stuff. You know, it's video game stuff. It's not reality. And I do think a lot of people have gotten their biblical theology from video games and films. You know, and that's why they believe this stuff. Because I'll tell you right now, that is not doctrine. Nowhere does it say that fallen angels became the demons. You will not find the line anywhere. It doesn't exist. It's not in the book. Anyway, the Bible does not say that demons are the spirits of the Nephilim. Well, Enoch does. It makes it very clear, and the Bible references Enoch plenty of times. Enoch was standard reading. And obviously, there's questions that can be said for 2nd Enoch and 3rd Enoch, but 1st Enoch is legit as far as I'm concerned. It answers, it fills in the gaps, it makes everything very clear about the origin of demons and where they come from. Okay, it does not say that fallen angels are demons. There's nothing in there that says that at all. Okay, obviously, demons are referred to in the New Testament primarily as unclean spirits. They don't really use the word demon. And these unclean spirits are the disembodied spirits of Nephilim, creatures that once had a body, but because they shouldn't exist, their soul is kind of stuck here. That's basically what's going on. Jesus, in a way, came to give us authority over them so they would stop being so much of an issue for mankind, you know. And all flesh was corrupted just before the flood. You know, you have to remember, there wasn't simply just these Nephilim creatures that which were everywhere. To be honest, from the narrative, it seems like a lot of these big giants were killed just before the flood. They end up killing each other as a punishment for the Watchers for creating them. They had to watch the beloved ones fight each other and die. So it does seem like a lot of the original firstborn Nephilim creatures killed each other. You know, and then there was a period of time just before the flood where humanity was corrupting their own DNA and mixing flesh together, creating hybrid creatures and monsters that were abominations in the eyes of the Lord. There was almost no flesh left. Noah was said to be the only one left, you know, uncorrupted, basically. So I do think a lot of these humans who hybridized themselves or turned themselves into mutants or X-Men by crossing their genetics with animals, I think they were trying to be like Nephilim. You know, they Nephilimified themselves, is a phrase I like to use. You know, they considered the human design flawed and wanted to be like their gods, which were now dead. So I think by corrupting their DNA and mixing themselves with animals, they in a way corrupted their very essence and soul and also became demons in death. It's a working theory, but I do think that has something to do with it. I do think if you corrupt your physical flesh like that, it in turn corrupts the soul, and in turn creates an eternal damnation situation where you can't leave the earth. You're no longer compatible with the heavens or something like that. I don't necessarily know this. This isn't doctrine as far as I know. I'm just trying to piece together what these people who corrupted their own DNA, where they fit into it. But I do think they may make up a good portion of the demons now on the other side, along with the Nephilim. We'll call them lesser demons. You know, we'll call them faux Nephilim in a sense. But it is possible. It is possible. So there you go. That sorry, that's what demons are. They're not fallen angels. They just are not fallen angels. I'm sorry. You cannot convince me otherwise. And people who believe that, you need to snap out of it. Like we can't afford to be getting it so wrong. Not anymore. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go to the chat and see what's going on. I'm going to say hello to you guys, and then once I've had a bit of a rest, had a drink. I'm going to do a bit of a book reading for you. I have been writing a few things, and I'm going to share it with you, just to give you a glimpse of what's to come on this topic of the Nephilim look like clowns. But let's just see who's here. We've got Amelia, thanks for being here. John and Nicole, thanks for being here. Elizabeth Joyce, hi, thanks for joining us. Saw you on Conspiracy Pilled. First live of yours I've caught, says Matthew Neves. Oh, excellent. Yeah, it was. Conspiracy Pilled was cool. PJ. I didn't get a chance to speak to Abby. She wasn't there for the show, but I do speak to them on the Discord since that show. Nice people. I really enjoyed talking with them. Hopefully I get to talk with them again soon as well. But yeah, thanks for being here. CTR77, thanks for being here. Great channel, thanks. God's Hand Moving, says Dublin Soldier. Mother of Pigs, thanks for being here. Joe Rogan thinks the jesters in the DMT world are his friends. Lol. I know, right? Idiot. What an idiot. This is another funny thing as well. I suppose I can say this in this, but that video blew up so much that I've had like 1,500 comments, and that's about, I don't know, 1,000 times more than I usually get. And as a result, I've seen the frequency of the common comments I always get being more prevalent. And people always say to me, this sounds like the DMT jesters everybody sees. And it's kind of like, they say it to me like, you should check it out. And I know I shouldn't be like this, but it's kind of like, I checked it out 7 years ago. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I'm writing the book on the subject. Believe me, I know about the DMT jesters. It's kind of a lot of people just keep saying it over and over again. And another one I got a lot of, and I always get a lot of this from new people, is this is just like killer clowns from outer space. It's kind of, it's just funny to me to constantly hear these same comments. And I suppose it's just a sign that, the media, in a sense, has heavily influenced people's minds on this subject and this matter, and they do have these silly, cheesy movies to remind themselves of clowns in some way. And people talking about Stephen King's It as well. But I just think it's funny that they say it in a way where it's kind of like, I obviously wouldn't know about it, and it just makes me laugh. I just thought I'd say that. But no, let's carry on. But yeah, the DMT jesters, Joe Rogan stuff. What a load of nonsense. They're not your friends. They are not your friends. Absolutely. What's this? I got a couple of super chats here. Thanks, True Life Ministry. I appreciate it. I like that little shades there. I like that. And Stranger Clock. Oh, well, thanks for being here. If you guys don't know, Stranger Clock there, who just left a super chat. I am going on her podcast next week, next Sunday. So, is it this coming Sunday? I think it's this coming Sunday, yeah. And I'll be streaming that to my channel so you can listen on there. And it's I've been doing the podcast circuit for the past few months. It started with the Ravens podcast and the Farms podcast, and it kind of blew up from there, really. And I've talked to a lot of people since. I've been on My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast with Mark P. Steves. And then he introduced me to Sam Tripoli, and I went on the Tinfoil Hat podcast, and that brought a lot of people, a lot of traffic. But yeah, that was a hell of an experience. And since then, I've just been doing podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast. But I will be on with Stranger Clock on Sunday, so you've got that to look forward to. I'll be streaming that. I think we said 9 p.m. UK time, so about a similar time to now, a couple of hours earlier on Sunday. So there you go, that's another live show to look forward to. And then I think I've got another podcast on, let me just check my calendar here. Yeah, on the following Monday, the next day, I am with That's So Fringy podcast, so that should be fun. And then on Wednesday, I have just arranged this. I will be talking with the Unexpected Cosmology on my channel. I've invited him on. I think it's Noel. I think that's his name. And we're going to talk about the Millennial Kingdom and the Millennial Reign of Christ and the whole Tartaria stuff. And we're going to talk about the chronology and the timing of everything. He's recently just released a video talking about how 536 AD seems to be the point in which the sun was darkened and something incredible and destructive happened in human history during that year. So that's to look forward to as well. A busy week next week. I'll have a lot of some guests on and all sorts of things. But yeah, let's keep going with the chat there. Thanks for the super chats as well. I really appreciate it, guys. So let me just see. We're talking about mullein leaf there. I used to smoke mullein leaf when I was quitting cannabis. I replaced my tobacco with mullein. Yeah, a bit of a bit of a memory blast there. I've been sober from cannabis though for like 8 years now, so that's gone. 8 years, yeah, I suppose 6 years, about 6 years, and I quit smoking about 9 to 10 years ago and used a vape instead and mullein. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember my own history there. It's been a while. I've always believed clowns are associated with demons. I've been thinking about it lately. And then your video popped up, says Marie Brazio. Well, excellent. I'm glad I can certify your thoughts for you. Yeah, it's one of those connections that once you make it, it can't be unmade. Once you see it, it cannot be unseen. And hopefully, if you guys are new here and you haven't already, and you have the time, binge watch the entire series I've created. I'm 42 episodes in. The production quality gets better as the years go on, okay? The one you saw that may have brought you here is kind of like the pin is where I'm at right now. It's the new style. But in the past, it was a lot more laxed, just screen sharing and pointing stuff out. But as I'm writing the book and I'm getting more refined and I've made the theory a lot more certified, and as I've been repeating on podcasts, I've managed to up my game with the production quality. So bear that in mind if you do watch the series. But what I will say is there is so much to see. Like, there is so much behind this. It's unreal. The history goes deep. Devin James says the NFL sounds like Nephilim and have teams such as the Tennessee Titans. Interesting, yeah, and the Giants as well and things like that. Yeah, that's interesting. I suppose they are the new men of renown, aren't they, in American culture? I've seen these clowns smoking DMT, says Baldine. They have big noses, big grins, etc. Made all sorts of geometric shapes and colours. I thought they were seraphim, though. Yeah, well, this is the thing. They are the children of seraphim angels, serpentine, fiery flying serpents, mixing with human mammal flesh. So they do have serpentine, seraphim-like features. So you wouldn't be too far off in thinking that, but the mistake is believing that these creatures are angelic. They are not. They are demons. They are hybrid angelic human creatures. I've seen these clowns smoking DMT. I've been binging your videos every day and night. So much great information I've never considered, says Mother of Pigs. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. I'm just going to quickly try and scroll through now, guys, because I've got a lot more comments than I usually get. So I'm going to have to keep the show rolling. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. Satan gaslights on another level. Absolutely it does. Sander says, hi, everybody. Hi, Sander. Thanks for being here. Stranger Clock, amen, Paul. Jesus is the way. I came from a Buddhist background and there's no salvation in it. That's right. It's all, everything else is works-based religions. That's the difference between Christianity and the rest. Everything else requires you to do enough stuff in the right order at the right times and you will be saved. Well, they don't even say that, enlightened or consciousness expanded or something, or I don't know what they offer, to be honest. Not much, but it's certainly not salvation. But yeah, it's all works-based stuff, and obviously, like I said, all Jesus asks is that you just repent of your sins and just believe in him. It's that easy. There doesn't need much more, so no man can boast, and he gets rid of this issue of pride and this idea that I've done more than you, I'm more deserving of salvation than you. It's none of this, I've done more good deeds versus your bad deeds. It stops the judgment, it stops the fighting, it makes sense. It's the only way humanity would ever even come close to coming together. Perhaps that's what the millennial reign truly was at one point, or will be, depending on where you stand on that one. But yeah, interesting to think about. The gospel is simple and even a child can get it, says a True Life Ministry. Exactly. Cat 14, killer clowns from outer space, literally. That's right. By the way, Kat, I've seen all your comments on my videos recently. I appreciate the support. I know I don't respond to all of them, but I get a lot of comments. But I have seen you. And again, thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. We've got another super chat here from Mysterious Stranger. Thanks for being here. I saw you in the Telegram earlier. I've just revamped the Telegram group, guys. By the way, if you don't know, I have a Telegram group you can join. I think there's 450 people in there now. It's a nice little community. We have our differences, we have our back and forth, but we all just share what we're finding there, and it's a good fun. I've just revamped it recently, and I've decided to. You can do this thing once you get to 200 members, where you can create topics. It's like subgroups within the whole group that just set for specific talking points. So I've got in there a prayer section. I've got a Bible study section, I've got a meme section, and I've got a cosmology section, because we had a flat earth argument, and I thought, you know what, let's just corner this off into its own place and let them just fight it out with each other. So and I'm probably going to put like an artwork section there as well, because Joyce has requested that. I did see that message earlier, sorry I've not responded. And we'll get it set up so everywhere has its place, you know. But yeah, if you haven't already, guys, the link's in the description for this video. There is a Telegram group you can join called Understanding Conspiracy, and I've made it. There's a clown tab on there. I want people to share any clowns in the wild they've found. If you're walking around in the streets and you see a person dressed like something like a clown, unprovoked for no reason, you know, or have clownish features, take a photo and send it to that group, because I love finding clowns in the wild. I really do. So just let me know, you know, it's a bit of fun. So yeah, check out the Telegram if you haven't already. The clown is a Freemason creation, says Matt X. It sure is. It absolutely is. And we're going to be talking about that, actually. I'm going to do a bit of a book reading, and we're going to go into the history of the creation of the modern clown. Look at that carnival game where you hit the target with a ball and the clown falls into the water. Oh yeah, I remember that one. Carnival, that kind of game is really an American thing, though. We don't really have carnivals like that in England. Freemason rituals literally look and sound like a circus. They do. You're right. They tell us exactly what they're going to do. Yep. Are those bull testicles blown up? Says Joe Simone. I know what you're talking about, Joe. No, they are bladders. They are goat bladders blown up. I'm not sure that's better, but yeah, that's what they actually are. Archons, Seraphim, Igungun, self-transforming machine elves. I've always thought they were the same thing. No, there's hierarchies and distinct differences. And you know, I may be in a way tautologically lumping a lot of mythological creatures together. That's only because some of them are representations of the same creatures. But there is a class between Archons and Seraphim, which I believe are just talking about the same things. They are the fiery serpents, the fallen angels, the watchers, and then the Gungun, or the machine elves in the spirit realm, these spirit entities, these hybrid creatures that are scattered all over the earth in mythological stories. They are either the hybridized humans and their spirits, or the offspring of fallen angels mixing with human, the Nephilim and their spirits. So there are kind of three classes: fallen angels, Nephilim, and faux Nephilim. But even the Nephilim subcategory in the middle has a few more under it, because the Nephilim mated with women and created their own children. And these were like half Nephilim, and these were known as the Eliud in Enoch. And then below them, the Eliud then slept with human women as well and created an even smaller Nephilim creature, which looks different, called an Elio. And I think that's where you start getting things like 9-foot tall giants like Bigfoot and things like that start appearing at those levels. So there's hierarchies and levels to these. But in terms of aesthetical imagery, they all seem to have the same similar thing going on. Wide serpentine jaws, grins, big bulging eyes, sometimes elongated skulls, pale white skin in some way. Basically a clown. Serpentine featured skin with multicolored patterns. a lot like a clown costume, but that's just what their skin actually looks like. They weren't wearing a costume. Many of them would have had horns, which are similar to a jester's hat today as well. It's all there, and this, as you can see on the screen now, this black and white fractal pattern thing that's going on here. This is just how they kind of are now in the disembodied form. In the fractal matrix, I think when they manifest in a visual way to us, this is the form they often take. This is what that liquid crystal polarization effect used to be on old TVs. Yes, there's a lot going on there. So let me just keep going down. The Ringling Bros are Nephilim worshippers, yeah. Where are the fallen angels, says Ash. Right, so first of all, the Watchers who mated with women, they were bound in chains until the end times, until the final judgment. They get released in the end. Then that's Apollyon who rises out of the pit in Revelations, with obviously his hybrid human scorpion monsters, little minions to give him permission to sting humans and not kill them, all that stuff. Apollyon is basically Samyaza, or Azazel, who was the leader of the Watchers who decided to mate with human women. It's them, the ones who actually did the act, who were bound in chains and locked out of the way. The rebellion of the angels was huge. A third of the angels rebelled in heaven and came down to earth and started going against God's creation. But not all of the angels who rebelled slept with human women. They are still free. They never went anywhere. They are playing a long con game against humanity. They're still here until the very end. They didn't get locked in chains or anything. They didn't commit any of those sins, such as mating with human women. But what they do is they get us and convince us through their demonic horde minions below them. They try to influence us to transgress the laws. But they in a sneaky way kind of don't, which is why they're not locked away. It's very legalistic and strange. But a lot of the fallen angels never went anywhere. They've just been watching, basically, and working their subtle hidden hands here and there to influence us. But the ones who mated with human women, they are the ones who were locked in chains. So that's if you didn't know that, that's basically the story summed up. Yes, Azazel and Samyaza, says David. That's right. So yeah, people. So again, this stuff is. I'm not making this up. It's in the books. You can read this. David, this channel is for me. Excellent. If it bleeds, you can kill it. Yeah, that's interesting. Right, I'm just skipping ahead quickly here, guys. Make sure I'm not missing anything major. Just quickly scrolling. Jan and Nicole, thanks for the super chat. I really appreciate that. That's amazing. Thank you. If you have a message you want me to see as well, feel free to comment and I'll try and get to it. Before the flood, the genetic experiments must have been out of this world, says Devon James. Oh yeah, they were crazy. Crazy stuff was going on. Honestly, I have a section in my book I've written where I'm trying to describe what it was like to live in the antediluvian age, just before the flood. And I've made it as brutal and disgusting as I possibly can, because from what I've researched, it was an incredibly psychedelic, insane, stupid time to be alive, and God could not have sent the flood any quicker. It's that kind of stuff. It's interesting. Right, sorry guys. I think I've caught up with the chat. Cryptid craziness. Where were they locked in chains? I don't know the specific place, to be honest. I don't. People say it's below CERN today. That's what they say it is. But I honestly don't know. I couldn't give you a place. Yeah, Abaddon, exactly. Susan Donahue, I'm wondering if the sons of God are demons and we, humanity, are fallen angels, duped by the Archons to give up heaven for a few trinkets. We fell to 3D. I mean, I don't think so. But I get you thinking. I think it borderlines like a Gnostic type way of thinking in a way. I think that gives the Archons too much power. But again, I'm pretty set on my beliefs on the matter. I think it's self-evident from what's going on again in these cultures, my own research. So I'm going to disagree on that one, Susan. But I get your thinking. What shocked me most from your research is the Gorgon or Medusa thing on Athena's chest. Because that's undeniably a clown. Yeah, it is. I don't know where it is on this slideshow. Maybe it'll turn up in a minute. Let me just... Oh, God, I'm not going to be able to skip through all these to get to it. It might turn up on the screen eventually, but yeah, that one is stupidly looking like a clown. Like, it's just way over the top. That is straight up a clown situation, isn't it? I know what you mean, yeah. Yeah, the Gorgonian on Athena's chest. Absolutely. If you haven't already, guys, check that one out. Sea Loss. Guest was Paul Stobbs. I am Paul Stobbs. What's going on? What was I a guest on? Tinfoil Hat episode 704 talked about Nephilim clowns. Okay, Sea Loss 18. I think you need to realise I am the guy that was on that podcast. You are listening to him again right now. But yes, I was on Tinfoil Hat. I hope that clears that up for you. Is this why ICP is so popular? You know what? It is. I don't know. Those guys are definitely... I think this Halloween, they had a concert in a Freemason hall. Or something like that. And all the Juggalos got together to this Freemason hall to do some kind of weird musical concert ritual, all dressed like clowns. So absolutely, yes, they knew. Samyaza and Azazel are not the same at all. They are brothers. Maybe, yeah. I mean, Samyaza seems to be the leader in some way, and Azazel is said to be one that was hung on Orion's belt, which is bizarre. Azazel is more associated with the goat god, but there is precedence for people to think they are perhaps talking about the same character, but it's neither here nor there. It's not a salvation issue. That's how I describe that one. Isn't it interesting how they want the big red clown shoes to be popular? Yeah, those things are ugly as hell. But that's right, they are pushing clown fashion on us now, guys. If you haven't seen, I do have an episode on clown fashion and how they are pushing it on the runways this year. I talk about it a few times in podcasts as well, but they're trying to get us to dress like clowns now for reasons of channeling demons, no doubt. Ignorantly, but that's what the result will be. Lol, thank you for the great content, says Sealos. Yeah, no problem. Right, guys, I've caught up with the chat there. I am going to... Okay, Matt X. I don't know what you're rebuking exactly or what's going on there. But play nice in the chat, guys. Play nice. I do have moderators around. Are any of them here? I don't know if any of my mods are actually here. I'm sure they are. You step out of line, you will be banned. That's how it works. We try and be cool here. We try and be nice to each other. All right, play along. Don't go throwing false accusations around. Right, enough pink and blue hair, says Susan. Absolutely. Right, guys. So I'm going to read a section of my book to you while this slideshow plays in the background. I think I'll just share with you quickly on the screen where I'm up to, what the process is. 'Cause I know obviously a lot of people are maybe waiting for this book, but I'm taking my time. I want to get it right. All right, I'm not rushing this. I'm talking about clowns, for God's sake. If I want it to be taken seriously, I actually have to do this right. I don't. And this is going to end up being maybe a 300 to 400 page epic by the time I'm finished. There's a lot to say here, a lot of history to go into. A lot of reference finding going on. But I will just share the screen with you so you can see on screen what I have been doing. I'll just pause this slideshow so we can carry on in a minute. By the way, what you're seeing on screen here is another clown character from Balinese theatre. We're talking about Bali earlier, but there's another one. So screen share here quickly. This is the chat I see. And this is the book I'm working on. So if you... look to the left here. Let me just close some of these tabs. They don't need to be up. Yeah. So if you look to the left of the screen, I'll just make it full screen so it's a bit more. Yeah. You can see this is basically all mapped out with a preface that isn't quite written yet. I'll write the preface at the end, no doubt. But the first section 1 is 10 chapters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way down here. It ends with demons. The first section is basically a breakdown of biblical history. So we go into the meaning of the name Nephilim. You know, it's a detailed explanation. And then chapter 3 goes into mankind's jealousy and pride and the fall of Cain. And then chapter 4 goes into heavenly jealousy and pride and explains the war in heaven, the rebellious angels and the watchers. Chapter 5 explains how jealousy and pride came together in human and angelic form, and how Cain and the fallen angels made a pact, and it was the daughters of Cain who mated with the angels to corrupt God's creation. So we go into that there. Chapter 6 is about the kings and rulers and how the Nephilim placed themselves into positions of power and became the kings of the antediluvian age. We go into a lot of Greek history there as well. Chapter 7 is utter corruption, and we go on to explain how they destroyed the earth and how bad it really got when they were ruling over. And then we have the flood in chapter 8, which breaks down all the flood myths that can be found all across the earth. I basically go into the Americas, explain all of their flood myths. Different tribes go to Europe, we explain all of their flood myths. We have Asia as well, and Australia and the oceanic regions and all of their flood myths. Just basically to drive home the point that what the Bible's talking about did happen. You know, it wasn't just a made-up story. And of course, we have the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a story from Mesopotamia. And obviously, there's two versions of this. And this either Zuazudra or Upnapishtim, who survived the flood on a boat. This explains how that was a Nephilim king. That was not an analogue for Noah. It was actually a completely different story about a completely different person, a Nephilim king who managed to survive the flood. And I know that's a controversial thing to say, but that's what the story is clearly depicting. And so it's not talking about Noah, it's talking about a king of Larsa, funnily enough. Chapter 9 talks about the aftermath of the flood and how the Nephilim possibly came back. We go through all the theories: second incursion, the curse of Canaan, Nimrod and the pillars and the tower, Nephilim genocide, and how they were basically, you know, how the first half of the Old Testament is basically just wiping out the remnants of the Nephilim from the lands of Canaan and taking back those lands. And obviously the creation of Israel as a nation in that respect, as a peoples. And then chapter 10 is about demons, how the disembodied Nephilim became demons today, and how we can cast them out in the name of Jesus, and how Jesus' ministry was focused on casting out demons and why and what the purpose is. And that's basically the first section, is biblical history, to explain where the Nephilim come from. That's, 69 pages there. And then section 2 is where I'm at currently. I'm halfway through section 2. This is where we get into the clown and how the Nephilim look like clowns, basically. Chapter 11 was biblical description of angels, and I go into everything we can find through the Bible and extra-canonical texts about how the angels were described to look. And that goes through most classes of angels, not just the seraphim themselves. And then here in chapter 12, we go through biblical descriptions of the Nephilim, and we find out what we can glean solely from the biblical sources, extra-biblical as well. Anything at all that gives us insight to what the Nephilim may have looked like from a biblical text standpoint only. Then chapter 13 goes into modern encounters, which explains how people have experienced giants akin to Nephilim, even in the relatively recent times. You know, and we're also going into the mounds of North America, Bigfoot and the wild man sightings, all the giant skeletons that have been dug up as well. And that's an interesting one, you know, and it's just a bit of bringing it into the present, you know. That's kind of the segue into the present. And then chapter 14, which I've just finished writing, is a long one. It's a really long one. And this is going into the history of the clown, where it comes from. We talk about Greece and Rome and the first clowns. We talk about Harlequin and his demonic roots to the wild man depictions. And then we talk about how the clown replaced Harlequin in the show of theatre, the pantomimes, and became the demonic character, and then how there was a costume change, and then we go on to talk about Joseph Grimaldi, the father of modern clowning, and how this man basically shaped the image of a clown as we know it today, but was also working under the son of a Freemason called Charles Dibdin, who invented the costume as we know it today as well. So what I want to read to you today is the Joseph Grimaldi section. Give you a bit of insight into the history of the first clown, the man who has been equated with being the father of modern clowning. So give you a glimpse of where I'm at. So I'm currently writing chapter 15, which is Secret Societies and the Circus. So I've talked about Charles Dibdin and his Harlequin Freemason from the 1700s. We go into Hiram Abiff there as well, and how he was represented as a guy who can summon jokers and jesters in this Harlequin. And then we go on to talk about Freemasons and the circus ritual and where circuses originate from. I've got here the clowns of the Mystic Shrine and how Shriners are obsessed with clowns as well and why. We're going to go into the Royal Order of the Jesters here in this section. And then once that's boxed off, chapter 16, we'll talk about the caricature of a clown and what it looked like and why a clown represents the Nephilim. So this is basically tying all together in section 2, the secret society's influence on creating the clown as a metaphorical, caricatured symbol to represent demons for the purpose of rituals, basically. That's all in this section. Section 3, once that's boxed off, will be about all of the traditions and the folk cultures all over the earth that venerate the Nephilim still and dress in ways that represent them. And that's what, obviously, that video you saw today, about the Rakshasas, will go here under chapter 24, Indic folk traditions. There's Rakshasas. It has its own subheading. Okay, but the point is, it literally is just one minor subheading in a 34 chaptered book here. You know what I mean? They're not that important. They're not that special. I guess what I'm trying to say to these people who want to defend these pagan gods and monsters, who think they are somehow incredible and important and unique, it's kind of your demon gods are not that special, is what I'm trying to say. They are literally a side note in my book. They're not that big of a deal. I don't care about them as much as you think I do. It's that kind of thing. But yeah, we talk about the Aztecs and all their versions as feathered serpents, Quetzalcoatl, the Quiché Maya. Also early European Correto traditions in Portugal, the cookery of Bulgaria, the Correntave of Slovenia. There's loads, we got the Croatian bellmen, we got the Bussos of Hungary, we got Greek history of demigods, Echidna, the mother of all gods, the Gorgons, the Gorgonians. It's all here, and I'm going to get it all down. We've got African folk traditions, and the god that list goes on forever because they're obsessed with ancestor worship. Then we've got Australia as well. The cannibals of Papua New Guinea, the Asura Mudmen, the Wanjinas, the Haka of the Maori, the Tiki culture. They all venerate Nephilim, and they all have their own tongue sticking out, big, toothy, wide-grinned, bulging-eyed monsters to represent them. So this is the book I'm writing, guys. The final section, section 4, will be about the media. So modern clown murderers and perverts, the 2016 clown sightings, the fear of clowns and coulrophobia, the multicoloured collective, as I like to call them. I'm sure we all know who I'm talking about there. The music industry, and then we'll get on to films and conclusions. And that's my book basically mapped out. And I am currently here. I'm halfway through. I'm on chapter 15. So I'm getting there. But as you can see, this is a scholarly work. Everything's referenced. I've got 269 references down or something like that. 120 something pages I'm up to or something like that. What am I don't know. Let's say 100 or so pages. But once this equates to a book format, it'll be more pages than that, because obviously it condenses it down. But yeah, this is my book. So I'm going to read for you about Joseph Grimaldi. A bit of history for you if you haven't heard of it already. And then I'll come back to the chat, catch up with you guys, and then I'll call it a night. Because as you can hear, my voice it's not going to hold on much longer. So let me just have a drink. I'm sure you guys loved listening to that. Right, here we go. Grimaldi's father, Joseph Giuseppe Grimaldi, was born in 1718. Came late in life to Britain from Genoa in 1760. As a resident dentist for Queen Charlotte. A man raised by performers of the Commedia himself, he was also a ballet dance instructor. This peculiar mix of profession was likely due to his own father's influence, who was a renowned acrobatic performer known as Iron Legs, who could amaze audiences of high reputation with incredible leaps and bounds on stage all throughout Europe. His grandfather won the name Iron Legs by leaping to the chandeliers of l'Opéra Comique in Paris for a bet. Naturally, his son, who became known as the Signor, left the life of teeth-pulling for the stage and very quickly built a solid reputation as a dance teacher to the affluent gentry who surrounded Queen Charlotte. Leaving his dentistry in the past, he became the ballet instructor and main performer of both the Old Drury Lane Theatre and Sadler's Wells, an appointment which would set the future stage in a very literal sense for his own son, Joey Grimaldi. The name Grimaldi was soon a public favourite for pantomime performances, and this family legacy continued onto his first son of the same name. A young Joseph Grimaldi was no more a toddler of 2 when his father paraded him on stage dressed like a little clown. We can read this in his own memoirs edited by Charles Dickens. Quote, "For at the age of 1 year and 11 months he was brought out by his father on the boards of Old Drury Lane, where he made his first bow and first tumble. The piece in which his precocious powers were displayed was the well-known pantomime of Robinson Crusoe, in which the father sustained the part of the shipwrecked mariner, and the son performed that of the little clown. The child's success was complete. He was instantly placed on the establishment, accorded a magnificent weekly salary of 15 shillings, and every succeeding year was brought forward in some new and prominent part. He became a favourite behind the curtain, as well as before it, being henceforth distinguished in the green room as Clever Little Joe, and Joe he was called to the last day of his life." End quote. Joseph Jr. continued to work at both Drury Lane and Sadler's Wells, often performing 2 shows a night for the 49 years he played the part. This was a monumental task which would be considered arduous for even adults to execute, let alone a child. This appointment of 2 shows a night was imposed on young Grimaldi by his father, the Signor. By all accounts, this man was a brutal dictator to both his dance students and his 2 children. The memoirs of Grimaldi are replete with accounts of his father's violence towards him as a child, mercilessly beating his son whenever he would miss a step or show contempt for his father's ways. Ever the jokester and cheeky irreverent fool, young Grimaldi would often put a little show on for his fellow actors and stagehands, when he was supposed to be standing quietly facing the corner at his father's command, often mimicking his father in the process. The Signor would swiftly dish out retaliatory beatings as soon as he caught wind of this behaviour. Grimaldi Sr. was an eccentric type, who had an extreme fear of the 14th of every month, acting relieved once the day had passed. This piece of information wouldn't be interesting on its own, if it wasn't for the fact that he actually died on the 14th day of March, and he was born, christened, and married of the 14th of the same month. He was a man obsessed with death, and mostly feared being buried alive. So much so, in fact, that he had it written in his will that he was to be beheaded before the closing of the casket to avoid such a situation, a gruesome act which was witnessed by several people. This deathly fascination was so important to the Signor that he often played cruel tricks on his children, such as faking his own death, simply to see how they would react, after telling them his entire estate would be theirs when it finally happens. Grimaldi saw right through the act and feigned sadness and despair at the visage of his father laying under a bedsheet, while his younger brother unwittingly skipped around the room, excited at being able to play with the cuckoo clock whenever he pleased now. The end result of this was his younger brother being beaten mercilessly, as was tradition, while adulation was showered onto the loyal and supposedly saddened Grimaldi. Such a life reminds one of child actors sold by their industry-owned parents to the stage, often growing up in industry-owned private schools that adapt to their performance schedules, experiencing very little of the normal childhood. Often these products of the industry grow to become so detached from the realities of normal life that they turn to taking drugs and performing outrageous acts, craving to be validated in the only way they know how, through the attention of strangers. Joseph was the product of strict performative discipline and family fame, and these factors would mean he would grow to become a performer of legend, who would not only be idolized in his time, but even to this very day, as one of the greatest to ever live within the world of theatre and clowning. The Signor died on the 14th of March, 1788, of dropsy, and his entire estate, which was to be given to both his sons, was instead reinvested by one of the co-executioners and lost the next year due to his failing business. With his father now out of the picture, no charity was afforded the bankrupt and destitute family, leaving young Grimaldi and his mother to continue their appointed performative roles at Drury Lane and Sadler's Wells for a pittance of a wage. However, after 3 years of unwavering commitment to performing his father's appointed 2 shows a night, Grimaldi was soon considered a part of the furniture at both the high-class Drury Lane and the working-class Sadler's Wells Theatre. He was so soon earning a reputable wage and was well on his way to becoming the star he was bred and trained to be. Grimaldi lived a life of tumultuous ups and downs, gaining large sums of money and losing them almost instantaneously through bizarre, cruel and foolish circumstances that would require a whole other book to explain thoroughly. Thankfully, his memoirs are available to read, and so are numerous biographies. We can say, however, that in 1799, Grimaldi was well established as a performer and was happily married to his first wife, Maria Hughes, the daughter of the owner of Sadler's Wells Theatre, Richard Hughes. Sadly, she would die due to childbirth complications on the 18th of October, 1799, and Grimaldi would go temporarily insane, losing himself completely in his work to avoid dealing with the extreme grief at the loss of his childhood love and their stillborn child. Ironically, and due to the ignorant insensitivity of his boss, he would play a gravedigger on stage at Drury Lane only 2 days after her death. It was during this time that a new stage manager was being hired to manage Sadler's Wells Theatre by Richard Hughes. Charles Isaac Mungo Dibdin, formerly Pitt, was then a 32-year-old playwright, the illegitimate child of an influential poet and composer called Charles Dibdin. Charles Dibdin Sr. was a Freemason of the Leicestershire Lodge No. 2429, and a character who will get his own biography in the next chapter. It's not known if Charles Dibdin Jr. was a member of the same fraternity, but he certainly followed in his father's professional footsteps. After a stint of creating numerous shows for Philip Astley and his equestrian amphitheatre, Dibdin Jr. debuted his creative talents as a stage manager at Sadler's Wells Theatre in the 1800s. This comes after his own brother, Thomas Dibdin, had finished a stint as stage manager of the same venue. Show business really was a family affair for the Dibdins. Let's go have a quick drink, guys. 1 second. His first show would be an innovative and groundbreaking performance called Peter Wilkins' Harlequin in the Flying World, in which a shipwrecked mariner is stranded on an island full of flying people. In order to leave its mark on the industry, a change was made to the pantomime, the likes of which was never before seen. He changed the costume of the clown, and even doubled up the main zany characters. This choice to double up the main characters was a tactical and diplomatic decision, more than a creative choice, due to 2 interpersonal conflicts taking place within Sadler's Wells Theatre. The first reason was an attempt to appease the owner of the theatre, Richard Hughes, who was applying pressure to the new stage manager to show favouritism towards his then son-in-law, Joseph Grimaldi. Hughes requested that Dibdin Jr. would give him more prominent roles in the performances that would further develop his skills and public standing. This request was made before Maria had died at childbirth. Her sudden death likely applied much more pressure to the young Dibdin to fulfill the request. After this show, her last words to her brother, likely intended for her father, were, "Poor Joe, oh Richard, be kind to poor Joe." Until then, Joe had only performed in leading roles as an understudy to a veteran French performer called Jean-Baptiste Dubois, who was in no emotional state to be ousted as the main clown of Sadler's Wells. Around this time, Dubois was also beset with problems since the death of his own wife. He had serious money problems after his plans to set up a performing academy for children had failed. He was constantly being harassed by debtors since his return from America. He was also worried that his son, now around 11 or 12, showed no interest or talent for theatre. Dibdin Jr. had already worked with Dubois in the past and did not want to upset a friend who was suffering. However, he could see that Grimaldi showed great promise as a leading performer, regardless of the pressure to put him there. So the choice to have two leading performers was made, to appease both parties involved. Grimaldi would gain his opportunity for leading roles, and Dubois would rightfully maintain his position as the seasoned pro. Dibdin's second innovation for this premiere show was to change the costume of the clown. This appears by all official accounts to be purely his own decision, though what inspired the specifics of the new design is never mentioned, therefore up for debate. Stott can be quoted by saying, quote, "Dibdin decided to deck the clowns in costumes that were totally new dresses," he said, "that were more extravagant than it had been accustomed for such characters to wear, that took the form of garishly colourful doublets and breeches, symmetrically patterned with large diamonds and circles and fringed with tassels and ruffs. This was a particularly significant change, as audiences were used to seeing clown in the tatty livery of shiftless servants, or a peasant's long smock, à la Poirot, a costume that had served to pin the character, albeit to an Elizabethan dog's body. To an ever-fading degree, to an inidentifiable social origin by essentially replicating the raiment of an Elizabethan dog body. By contrast, Dibdin's costume lifted the clown out of any specific context, transforming him into a stylized and inimitable archetype, a firebrand as visually striking as he was reckless and energetic." End quote. As we can glean from this raving review of the new change, the costume of the clown was changed forever from a dull and boring look of tatters of an Elizabethan servitude into a unique and wholly bizarre design that set the character apart from all other comedic performers of the stage. This was the creation of the first proto-modern clown. Yet still, no explanation is ever given for Dibdin's wild choice of design, so we are left to speculate. I believe if we consider his father's ties to Freemasonry and obsession with India, and his uncle's connection to the British East India Company's colonisation of India, we can assume that the representation of Rakshasa demons within this culture likely played a role in the creation of this costume. The traditions of this culture and its links to the clown costume will be explored in far more detail in section 3, but for now we must continue to unravel the story of Grimaldi, and how he made sure the new costume would become a staple for future generations of performers. Peter Wilkins was a smash hit, and the public and Grimaldi had proven was a smash hit with the public, and Grimaldi had proven he was by far the superior clown between himself and the classically trained Dubois. Though Dubois showed superior technical proficiency, he couldn't convey the raw energy and realistic emotion that Grimaldi brought to the character. Dubois could certainly act like a great clown, but Grimaldi was a great clown. Some say he was simply channeling his pain and anguish at the loss of Maria and their child into his performances, playing the upbeat and unfazed rascal for the public in stark contrast to the depressed and emotionally bludgeoned man he truly was after the loss of his wife and child. Lost in his work, Grimaldi continued to perform the new shows and solidify his dominion over the newly designed clown, and of his performances, Charles Dibdin Jr. said this, quote, "For as clown and singer of clown songs, exclusive of his excellence in serious pantomime, I despair of looking on his like again. I never saw anyone equal to him. There was so much mind in everything he did. It was said of Garrick that when he played a drunken man, he was all over drunk. Grimaldi was all over clown." End quote. Painful misery struck a young Grimaldi once more, only 11 months after his initial success on stage, when a gunpowder-filled prop gun misfired into his boot. Appearing in The Great Devil, one of Charles Dibdin's serio-comic spectacles, based on the current news of a gang of banditti terrorizing Genoa. Grimaldi finished the scene while his skin melted with the leather. A group of stagehands had to help remove the boot, putting him out of commission for 5 weeks. Unable to distract himself from the loss of Maria, he was watched by his close friends and family for attempts of suicide. He spiraled into insanity and a deep depression, talking to no one who entertained him, tending to his new pigeon-keeping obsession, disappearing for days on end just to be found wandering aimlessly by a river or in a meadow. Desperate to bring him back from his stupor, his mother introduced him to a choir member of Drury Lane Theatre called Mary Bristow, who nursed him as he healed. Through this process they would fall in love, and eventually she became Mary Grimaldi, though little much is said about her in the history books, just that she was his wife for 30 years afterwards. It's said that he asked her to marry him out of gratitude for looking after him, and perhaps this is a statement about his reduced capacity to love after Maria. Just before his accident, Grimaldi was playing the clown at both Sadler's Wells and Drury Lane, with Dubois defeated, out of the scene, and no longer able to compete. It was during this same time that Harlequin would also gain a new costume, and was no longer the demonic rascal he once was, rather a lovesick romantic, making Joseph's new form of clown and mischievous character the natural replacement for the now missing demonic monster. Intending to revamp the performances and further develop Dibdin's change in costume, Grimaldi took it upon himself to change the makeup of the once plain character to something wholly unique to himself. To quote Stott, "Then there was the face, where Dubois had merely rouged circles on his cheeks, in imitation of florid nature. Joe wanted to make a canvas of his entire visage, painting a picture that was sufficiently bold to be seen at the back of a barn like Drury Lane, yet expressive enough to convey the subtleties of character in the intimacy of the Wells. Day after day he sat before the mirror, brush in hand, marking his features, wiping them clean, and starting again, until finally a face emerged from the candlelit that bore a grin so incendiary it refused to be erased. It began with a thick foundation of grease paint, applied to every exposed inch of face, neck and chest, and invading even the nostrils, the ears and inside the lips. He fixed it with a cloud of powder and then painted a blood-red wound, a mile-wide smear of jam, to form a gaping, gluttonous cavern of a mouth. The eyes, wide and rolling, were arched by thick brows, whose incredulous curve belied their owner's mendacity, while each cheek received a red chevron that conveyed instantly rude health, while being simultaneously suggestive of some exotic beast of Hindu demonology. End quote. This seemingly offhand comment about the new makeup style being suggestive of Hindu demonology may be far closer to the truth than I think Stott understood himself. This was certainly a parallel I made immediately after seeing the early artwork of Dibdin and Grimaldi's new style of clown. Though similar features are found on every continent when describing the demonic, the Indian connection is perhaps the strongest link that relates the design of the clown to that of Nephilim creatures directly. It is something I will be explaining in great detail as this book continues into section 3. To round off this very short biography of Grimaldi, he would go on to perform his new clown all over the country, but never leaving his station at Sadler's Wells and Drury Lane theatres, despite many challenges with management. His private life continued to be a tragic tale. Even after losing a wife, a child, at birth, Joseph and Mary never had money growing up, so when he did make large sums of cash, he always lost it in an equally sudden manner, succumbing to numerous scams from those seeking to abuse his naive, trusting nature. His long-lost brother would appear for one night before mysteriously disappearing once more in what was assumed to be a murder-robbery, though no body was ever found. Though he became a beloved king of the comedic stage, he eventually had to retire due to the toll on his body the clown life had taken. Unable to work, he and Mary relied heavily on yearly fundraisers and donations to be able to keep a roof over their heads. His son, of the same name, born to his second wife Mary, would grow up to be a clown too, but later lost all his appointments due to extreme alcoholism and violence. Grimaldi tried his best he could to help find his son some stability, but it was no good. His son, who died at the age of 30 under mysterious and still yet unexplained circumstances, including possible poisoning or ignored internal injuries sustained on the stage. Mary would have a stroke just before finding out about their son's death, leaving them in a state of such deep and hopeless depression and illness that they attempted a suicide pact with poison. It seems even this was another disappointing failure for the Grimaldis, as it only caused stomach cramps instead of the intended effect. Mary died in 1834, leaving Grimaldi a lonely, broke, childless cripple until his own death in 1837. Much can be said for Grimaldi's story, and after reading the insane story of his life through his memoirs and biographies, it doesn't seem fair to simply distill it down to a few pages. However, for the purpose of this book, it was only necessary to show what role he played in creating the makeup for all modern clowns to copy after him. It was also pertinent to show how the costume was designed for him by the son of a prominent Freemason named Charles Dibdin, though some minor alterations were said to be made by Grimaldi during his makeup mix-up. This will be very important when considering how the inspiration for the new design likely came from Indian representations of Rakshasa demons. With this cursory knowledge settled as to the origin of the costume, we can now go to explore the deeper role secret societies played in the popularizing of the Joey-style clown after it was created. It's time to go to the circus. Okay, there we go, guys. That's the book. Sorry I had to cough a few times there. Obviously my throat's a bit sore today, and I've been struggling to... Yeah, so look, funny enough, this is a clown character from Hindu mythology from Bali, and it looks very similar to how Grimaldi dressed and did his own makeup. I do think there's a direct inspiration here. Look at the white plastered face with the red wide grin like was described there. You know, yeah, his inspirations definitely came straight from Hindu mythology and their representation of demons. But there we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that little reading of the book. I'm just going to go into the chat, see what's going on, and just give me 1 second. I'm going to get some water, so bear with me. Right, I am back. Yes, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I hope you enjoyed that little chat there, that little snippet of the book. it's quite heavily referenced all that point, because with it being a lot of history, it's hard to get the facts straight. So I had to do a lot of reading to get that story. A lot of the characters' names, because fathers always name their children after themselves, it gets extremely confusing very quickly when you go that far back in time. So I had to iron out a lot of history just to get that. But yeah, there's the book, guys. It looks like there wasn't many comments, which is good. That means you guys were reading. So let's see what I can catch up with. Deep thought diving books is a true life industry. Thank you. Yeah, I like to think so. Thanks, Paul. Book sounds amazing, says Lazatron TV. Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to listen more. I love to hear the books read by those who wrote them. Your work is very much appreciated. Thank you. That looks like the face-changing magicians from China. Yes, you're right. It's very similar in dress. I do have a picture of the face changers somewhere on here. I'm not sure where, though. Look at this creepy old Halloween costume from like the early, late 1900s, yeah. Here's some clown fashion for you on the runways. Dabby Dawson, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Can those remaining Nephilim seek salvation through Christ? Why or why not? You know what? I'm not 100% on that myself. I asked that question to Gary Wayne, who wrote the book about the Nephilim, called the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. When I asked him, you can go listen to it, by the way. It is available on my channel, the whole talk with him. But when I asked him, he believes they can. He believes it's rare, not easy, but it is possible for the Nephilim to aid the people of Israel. He gives examples of stories where Nephilim creatures did help Israel in their battles. So it's possible, maybe. Whether that actually led to them being saved or salvation, I'm not sure, because Christ wasn't around then. But Gary Wayne would say yes. I would say I'm not 100% on that. Who can truly know? At the end of the day, what Gary said and what I agree with is it's up to God at the end of the day. It's not up for me to decide who does and does not get salvation. But from what I've researched and gathered, it seems like there really is no hope for them. By nature of what they are, they would never accept the salvation, but maybe they would. I don't know. I couldn't answer for sure, but it's definitely a thought-provoking question. I'll say that. Grimaldi was evil. His dad was evil. Grimaldi was just more of a naive fool, from what I've researched. But Grimaldi's father, yes, who was also called Giuseppe Grimaldi, he was an evil bastard. Absolutely, yeah, he was. What of all the channeling worship of demonic forms that goes on in institutionalized Christianity? Says Riverhouse Sounds. I don't know what you're talking about. Quite sure that people will simply blame the Vatican and make distinctions between Catholicism and Christianity. I don't know what you mean. As a non-denominational Christian myself, I certainly don't channel or worship demonic forms. I have no idea what you're talking about. Biblical scholars are also torn about the origin of Nephilim. Are they the wicked sons of Cain or hybrid progeny of fallen angels and men? The thing is, I don't think they are that torn. I think it's clear. You've never seen an example of two humans having sex with each other, creating a 60-foot giant that wants to eat people. That doesn't happen, you know? And that's what the Sethite theory proposes, and that's just not possible. That doesn't explain giants, I'm sorry. The fallen angel, sons of Cain, the sons of God being angels, definitely explains it. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, Riverhouse Sounds. I don't know what you're ranting and raving about there, but I'm not interested. I have the answer about Nephilim salvation. No, because they won't ask for mercy. they blame God. I've read a story a monk wrote. Yeah, that's what I mean. It seems like, I suppose the offer would be there for them if they could repent, but I don't think they have it in them to repent. You know what I mean? It seems like they don't actually have that ability in some way. Sorry, bear with me, guys. I just need to check something. There we go. Right. Abraham and associates sounded like a hybrid, but it's unclear that he accepted Jehovah. Yeah, that's what I mean. There seems to be moments where it seems like the Lion Men of Moab, for example, is another example of hybridized humans who seem to fight with Israel against certain Nephilim. But just because the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation may have been happening doesn't mean that they necessarily were, on God's side, shall we say. It's hard to know. It's hard to know with these things. Again, I would leave that under his domain. Satan says, I'm understood. I say you're banned. There we go. Easily done. Yeah, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in the trolling, guys. I have little tolerance for stuff like that. I'm just over it. I've been doing this for too long, whatever. Hi, all. Sorry. Eldoan says, hi all, brand new sub, such a pleasure to find your channel. I love the content. Topics are not discussed enough in church. That's true, yeah. I mean, I'm what we call a backdoor Christian. I kind of came at it from outside of the church. I was never a part of a church to begin with. I found Christ later in life. And I came out of the New Age, Gnostic, atheistic worldview, never raised completely secular, and the church world was just never my world. So I'm not a member. I'm still not a member of a church today, because when I did try, I just couldn't. There wasn't enough meat in what was being taught. They didn't talk about all this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, yeah. I just, the good people. Nothing against the people in those churches, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't for me. And I get my church here online with you people. You know what I mean? This is where I get my when two or more people gather. Well, this right now, what have we got? We've got 111 people here right now. You know what I mean? I do feel like this is my form of church in a way. Temple of Layla, I bet you're a murderer. Are you? Is me? What has the Nephilim done wrong? So do some humans. I bet you're a murderer. God, I don't know what you're talking about there. Temple of Layla. I've never murdered a human being in my entire life. I don't think. I mean, maybe as a child, I've killed a few ants. I don't know. And that's between me and God, I suppose. But I've never intentionally murdered anyone or anything. Don't get me wrong. Me as well. I didn't grow up in a religion and check out many other religions before finding Christ, or properly said he found me. That's correct. Well, that's nice to know. True life ministry. Yeah, it seems like our stories are quite similar. You find. I find a lot of Christians today online in the conspiracy world definitely came at all this from a different angle, from outside of it, and it tends to be, someone was explaining in a Telegram group that people who come at it from a spiritualist angle, who have already gone through the Gnostic New Age stuff, seem to be easier to convert to Christianity than atheists. Because they at least have some knowledge of spiritualism, that the spiritual world is at least real. So it's not too hard for them to then accept Christ eventually. But for the atheists, they have a completely different framework. And it's hard for them to make that leap or jump to accepting that there's a God, because they don't have any spiritual understanding or concepts available to them, if you get what I mean. And I think that's interesting. I think that's was an interesting point to be made. And I do find, that the story of coming out of the New Age or Gnosticism to finding Christ is extremely common now. and a lot of the Christians in the Truther community are those people. There's a lot of church-going ones, people who were raised in the church, who have always been saved, are around. Don't get me wrong, but there's definitely a lot of testimonies I've heard, because I ask people to share their testimonies with me on my Telegram when they join. It's the same story. We're all going through the same thing. It's definitely, I don't want to use that term, there's a great awakening happening, because I believe that's a Gnostic deception. This whole you're either saved or you're not. You know what I mean? Being awakened is not going to save you. Knowledge will not save you. I'm a staunch proponent of that, but it does seem a lot of people are coming to Christ right now through the truth that conspiracy subject stuff, which is amazing, which is wonderful. What are your thoughts about the theory of Lucifer being a Nephilim himself, with his father being a fallen angel? I've never actually heard that one before there, Dabidosin. I've not actually heard that one. I mean, from what I can tell, Lucifer was said to be the morning star. He's often equated with Venus. People equate him to being a seraphim angel. This is what my researchers reported to me. He was considered at the right hand of God, right by his throne, his most trusted and beloved of angels. I'm not saying like it obviously is a son of God, because all angels are sons of God, but he was kind of like the one he was most, I don't want to say proud of, but he held Lucifer in such a high regard as the most beautiful angel. If he was that close to God, then he must have been able to be in the presence of God, and there's only 3 classes of angels that can do that. It's the cherubim, the thrones, and the seraphim. So he has to be one of the 3. He has to either be a seraphim angel, a cherubim, or one of the thrones. Now the thrones can't move from their appointed place, because it's said in Ezekiel that they hold up the firmament, so we know he isn't one of those. The cherubim, or the living creatures as they're described, are animalistic, strange-looking hybrid creatures with many faces of animals, and that's just not how Lucifer was described. And if Lucifer was a seraphim, the seraphims are the ones who fly around the throne of God singing holy, 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 and it said that Lucifer played his many pipes and organs and was a musician. So it's likely that he was one of the singers by the throne of God, the leader of the seraphim, the highest class of angels that God trusted the most. So I think Lucifer likely was a seraphim angel, just from my own deduction and research. There's arguments to say that he later became Satan. I've heard arguments that Satan may be a lesser being than Lucifer or something different. Again, I'm not 100% on that. But I think it's likely that when he was cast down, Lucifer became Satan. It's the same character, but he didn't become a demon. He's still an angel. He is still a seraphim angel. Nothing changed, fallen or not. But yeah, so my research has told me that he is a seraphim class angel. That's what I've got to. But an interesting thought process. I'd be interested to find out what you've read or heard, Dabidosin, to think that. I'm always open to reinterpretations, Make no mistake, I needed a saviour just like everyone else, says Roger, absolutely. Drug Wedding Photographer, thanks for being here. You're late. I've needed a mod. Where have you been? No, but thanks for joining anyway. I appreciate it. He was the son of Shahar. Drug Wedding. Shalom. Sorry. Wendy, by the way, yeah, Wendy, I'm just letting you know I'm making you a moderator. I trust you with this. There we go. So, Wendy, you are now a moderator as well. You've been around long enough for me to trust you to make the right decisions. Don't get all dictatorial with the power, but I trust you'll be able to help me out with this in the future, because obviously you're always here, and I appreciate that. So it's good to have a friendly face that I can trust around. The Bible talks about the conspiracy of fighting not with flesh and blood, but with the rules of darkness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. Absolutely, Lindsay. You're right there. You're right. We don't fight against flesh and blood. Our battle is against principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness in high places. Absolutely. I have 3 cousins that work for Barnum and Bailey. It's interesting that when they get their makeup, it is what they always put on. It's their character. I always thought creepy, says T.S. Horwath. Yeah, well, both of the P.T. Barnum and Bailey were both Freemasons. I think it was P.T. Barnum who came up with the phrase, there's a sucker born every minute. These are not good people. He was a charlatan. He was a snake oil salesman as well as a circus ring owner and performer and slave driver and abuser of animals as well. But yeah, clowns take their characters and personas very seriously. They do. It's considered extremely taboo and wrong to steal a clown's makeup. You have to come up with your own. Yeah, it's one of those type of things. Funny enough, the next chapter of my book about the circuses, which I've not read, obviously, but was coming up next, I do go into the Ringling Brothers, Sarasota Ringling Brothers, the P.T. Barnum and Bailey, Philip Astley, the creation of the Ring circuses, and how they were all Freemasons, basically. Yeah, it's a Freemason affair from start to finish. May God speedily heal you and your family from that cough and sickness, my brother. I'm at the back end of it now. I think I'm healing. Another couple of days, I think I'll be back on top. But yeah, it's been rough. It's been really rough. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a tough one. When you're a tightly knit family of 3, when one gets ill, everyone gets ill, and it's just one of those, isn't it? But no, I'm getting better. That's definitely. But it's this last few days, it's all in my ears. I just have an earache more than anything, and my throat has been tickly. But it's been bad up until that point. I envision the throne as the colourful mandala tunnel that emanates from God himself. Yeah, God's throne is not the same as the angels, who are also known as thrones. They're on the thrones sit upon wheels. They're crazy, and they move on the wheels in an ethereal light sense. And when they move their wings, it's a sound of roaring wind and waterfalls and water crashing. But these, from what I can tell, I think angels have a role to play in maintaining God's creation. And I think whether you want to get spiritual or literal about it, the throne's job is to hold up the firmament. That's their role in creation. They can't move. Do you know what I mean? Whatever they are is something psychedelic and crazy, definitely. Fallen angels can possess humans. Oh, I don't doubt that for a second. Yeah, fallen angels have the ability to ethereally possess humans if they want to. Absolutely, and so did their children in disembodied form. Yeah. But the Holy Spirit can possess a person. It's kind of, it's just the nature of the heavenly interacting with the physical. It's one of those things that can be done. Absolutely. But I think for an angel to do that, I don't think they would do it without permission from God. Do you get what I mean? It's all in God's control. They're still, fallen or not, rebellious or not, they're still under God's command and dominion. That's the thing. That's the problem. They just don't like it. But they have no power in and of themselves. Angels are in a sticky situation, stuck between a rock and a rebellious place. Let's put it that way. You mentioned Adam being put into the Garden of Eden. What do you think the fruit of knowledge actually was? The original sin. Why do you think God kicked Adam and Eve out of Eden? I've speculated about this forever, and I don't have an answer exactly. I don't know what the forbidden knowledge was. It seemed like it was a bit of a trick, to be honest. Because the promise was, if you partake of this knowledge, from this particular fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, then you'll be like gods and your eyes will be opened, and God doesn't want that for you. But the irony is that their eyes were already opened. They already walked with God in the Garden of Eden, they were already in an extremely godlike position and state. So the knowledge that corrupted them wasn't actually useful in any way, shape, or form. In fact, what it made them realize kind of made things worse for them. You know what I mean? So I don't know what it was exactly. I couldn't say, but it whatever they did shifted their perspective, putting them into a position of fear rather than upright righteousness with God. It put them into a state of shame, noticing that they were naked all of a sudden and needed to hide it. They felt shameful to exist. They changed something about themselves. Something happened to make their perspective shift. And that's what the knowledge gave them in a way. I'm not sure what it was. I couldn't say. It's a good question. And whatever it was the introduction of fear, pride, and shame. And that led to mankind doing things with this basis now, which are evil, to protect themselves out of fear. And it became a cycle of destruction from there on, and beginning with Cain, killing his own brother out of jealousy. It just becomes a mess after that. But I couldn't say exactly what it was, what the knowledge of good and evil was, and to call it a fruit as well is a bizarre language choice, I'll admit, because it implies maybe it was bad fruit, it was rotten fruit, But people say, oh, well, maybe they took some kind of psychedelics or something, but whatever it was, it certainly didn't enlighten them. It did the opposite. Meanwhile, his wife still isn't a mod. Sorry, wife, I'll make you a mod. There you go. My wife is now a mod as well. There you go. I subscribed for a while, but this is the first time I received a notification. Oh, well, Roger, I hope you receive many more from now on. How long have we been going for? We've been going for... Where's the timer on this? I don't have a timer. Almost 2 hours, so I've got 10 minutes left, guys. I'm going to start wrapping this up now. If you have any questions you want to ask, get them in now. That would be great. And I'm just going to try and get through the last of these comments, and then we're going to round it off. I hope you enjoyed the little talk there. Thanks for all the super chats today, guys. I really appreciate it. If you do want to support me in a more consistent, regular way, please consider signing up to Patreon. And that is the best way to support me. If, for whatever reason, someday YouTube decides to rip all this away from me, I would lose a lot of money, and I need to support my family at the end of the day. But being on Patreon guarantees that if that did happen, I still have a safety net through my patrons, So I would implore anybody who does want to support me financially, please consider signing up to Patreon. That would be the best, safest way to support me and my family. But that being said, let's catch up with these chats. But also, guys, I do appreciate the super chats, though. I really do. It means a lot to me that you care that much. The Bible talks about conspiracy. Our fight is not with flesh. Yeah, sorry, let me just catch up. I've gone too far ahead. Shots fired. Shots fired. Can't remember. He said he was going to once. Can't remember what I said in response, but I think I lost my chance. You did say something that made me think that I'd be giving you too much power. Definitely, I can't remember what you said exactly. But now I've given you the power. Use it responsibly, wife. All right. Use it responsibly. What do you think about the theory I've heard? The 1,000-year millennial kingdom already happened, and the mud flood ushered in the shut. Right, well, that's a whole thing to unpack, which will take hours to discuss, the whole 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ and the mud flood. But what I will say is, if you go onto my channel, my videos, I have videos already talking about it. I have about 3 out so far, speculating about the millennial kingdom and what that would mean. So go check those out to get my opinion. But I will be talking on next Wednesday with the Unexpected Cosmology channel, Noel, and he is somebody I would consider who has put a lot more thought into it with the documents and dates and times than I have. So I'm going to get him on to share his thoughts on the idea. But I personally, I don't know where I stand with the whole preterism thing. I really don't know. It could be the case. It might not be the case. Someone, I can't remember his name, but he described it to me as something like a shelf of wonder. This is a type of thing you just put on your shelf of wonder and leave it there because you can't possibly know the answer, but it's fascinating to think about, and that's where I stand on it. Looking at these costumes, are superheroes depicting Nephilim? Yes, they are. Absolutely, they are. X-Men hybrid humans. Absolutely. You should try Manuka honey, fresh ginger. I know I should do all of that. I know I've got lozenges and all sorts. I'll sort it out in a minute. But right now I'm in the middle of a talk with you guys. We'll pray for your recovery, says Cheryl. Thank you. I think he thinks the power would go to my head. Yeah, he read my mind. There you go. Watch out, guys! I have power. Yeah, don't make me regret this. I'm serious. Don't make me regret this. But 7 years on God's clock is 700 hours. So. Bravely address demon worship within Christianity and Judaism. Look, there are some things I can and cannot discuss. There are certain factions and people that if I did mention, I would lose everything instantaneously. Right now, my focus is to get this book done. Okay, I have a niche topic. It's the Nephilim clown thing. That needs to be completed and sorted and boxed off before I consider starting to go out there and just lambasting factions of people, okay? There are people out there already doing that. My niche, my thing right now is this Nephilim clown shtick. And that's what I'm going to finish the book first before I do anything stupid or say anything stupid, alright? I used to do all that in the past. And I got a lot of strikes and suffered greatly for it, and the channel was rocky, videos deleted, all sorts of things going on, alright? I've been there, I've done that war. Right now, I'm just doing the clown stuff, alright? This is the topic God has given me to get out there, and I want to get it finished and boxed off first, alright? Tabby Dawson, FYI, I heard about the Lucifer Nephilim theory from a podcast episode on YouTube called The Bloodline of Lucifer, Hallel Ben Sahar. Or from Now You See TV. Interesting. All right. Well, I have watched Now You See TV plenty of times, but I missed that one. I will look into it. Thanks to your recommendation there, Davidos. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I'll check that episode out. The Bloodline of Lucifer. Now You See TV. Okay. The wheels that I spoke of in reference to Ezekiel's vision and the angels' wheels mentioned are the stars in procession in the heavens. Oh, interesting. Adam and Eve became self-aware, says Lindsay, yeah. The jesters in the DMT world try to sell you that the forbidden fruit is if you ask them for wisdom. That's true, they do. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to make sure I get through the chat. I'm going to have to round it off in a minute. The funny thing to me is Christians come here to talk about these topics because their pastors are just as ignorant. Even the scripture is completely manipulated. KJV and KJV, choose your denom, says Isaac. Hey, look, you're preaching to the choir. There's a lot of corruptions in organised churches and in Christianity religions. There's a lot of corruption. I just build my own personal relationship with Jesus and God. That's all I do, you know. Could you give your thoughts on Numbers 12 and God giving Miriam white leprous skin? I'll save that for another time. But I do think the whole leprous white skin thing has been referenced before in the book of Lamech of Cain. It does seem to be possibly a mark of some kind to show the sinful nature, but I don't know. I couldn't say fully. Even if you're born again, God will allow to bring you to repentance. Live through it. God is merciful, though. Yeah. Okay, Bowden Mcnowski. Yes, the throne is stationary. It's the vertical axis. That is Jacob's ladder or world tree. The chakras. Saturn being the top just below the firmament. The throne is stationary, connects God to all. Listen, I know you think all that sounds really deep. It doesn't. It just sounds really cringe to me. Lose the Gnostic bullshit, please. It's nonsense. You need to move on. All right, you need to get over that now. You need to realize it's not all symbolism. It's very real, okay? And it's not symbolic of your way to reach Christ consciousness through the connection of the chakras, through the right spiritual energies, blah, 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 blah. It's not an archetypical symbolic thing. Jesus Christ was a real person who existed, who died and rose from the dead for a specific reason. Not to make you feel like you're super clever and enlightened. Alright, that's not what it was for. It was to save your soul from eternal judgment and damnation, and from the lake of fire in the end. You know, it's about being saved. Perhaps that kind of talk is all about the knowledge of good and evil, eh? Anyway, guys, I think I have reached the end here. Hey, I'm the perfect mod. I'm always here, says my wife. Absolutely, yep. I can't wait to read your book, says Max T. Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm grateful for all your work and study, says like, thank you, I appreciate it. Rob Burns, gotcha. Great stream, Paul. Going to bed now. See you the next time. Much love, everyone, says Sander. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. We know who the controllers are, Paul. Exactly, yeah. Shulamite, thanks for being here. Thanks for subbing as well. I appreciate it. Unlike other Bibles that change passages, says King Harvey. Yeah, the KJV seems all right for me, but I do understand there's a contentious history behind that some people don't like. I'm not talking symbolic, I'm very literal. Yes, Jesus is king. Oh, good. Excellent. I'd lose that chakra stuff about Saturn, though. I'm not sure what the hell you were talking about there. Have you reached your end? True. You know that relationship with Jesus Christ we save, facts over feelings. This was awesome. Right, guys, I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Like I said, this is the Truth of Therapy sessions. I try and do this every Sunday. Next Sunday, however, I know it's not Sunday today, it's Wednesday, but I've been ill, so I've not been able to do the usual live stream I would normally do. Instead, I released that video about the strange rock formations in the Black Desert of Jordan. So go check that out if you haven't. That's a weird one. But yeah, guys, thanks for the support today, guys. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you all being here. I hope you're enjoying the channel. Please understand that you can go and watch all of my videos and they stand alone. Okay, so they're not time sensitive. The videos I've made in the past aren't only relevant to that particular time, and you can go back and watch them and they'll still be relevant to now. So go back and watch the back catalogue of all my videos if you've got the time. It'll give you a better understanding of where I've come from, what I do, what I talk about, the topics I'm into, and my style. But I'm not one of those people like reports on the news, so now it's irrelevant. All my videos are always relevant, always. I try and make them that way, alright? So go check out the back catalogue if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll be back next week with another live show. I'll be back next week as well with 3 interviews. So they'll be streamed live to the channel. And I'm always working on the next episode of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, so don't worry about that. But those things take a bit more time. Yeah, guys. As you can hear, my voice is going, so I'm going to leave it. Thanks for listening. And as always, God bless.